Get ready to hear something you probably weren't expecting when you clicked on this video. This remake has definitely made me change my mind. It might sound like an exaggeration, but there are details here that deserve to be discussed calmly. The starting point is pretty straightforward. I've never been a fan of remakes. To me, this trend of redoing stories feels like a way of treating the audience as naive. Even so, when the work is well done, I acknowledge its merit. And that's exactly what happened with How to Train Your Dragon. Right from the first few minutes, a sense of familiarity fills the screen. Everything is there. Dean DeBlois directing, Chris Sanders script, even Gerard Butler reprising his role, now in live action. The film follows the original shot for shot, but with a more realistic approach, using actors instead of animation. And even though I knew everything that was going to happen, it was still impossible to look away. Dean DeBlois' direction and Chris Sanders' script return with strength in the remake, preserving the essence of the original work. The decision to keep the same creative team reinforces the faithfulness to the source material, which adds to the sense of familiarity and respect for the classic narrative. The actor Gerard Butler, who voiced the stoic character in the original animation, returns to the role in the live action, now performing in person. This decision emotionally connects fans of the animated version with the new format, maintaining the bond with the franchise's past. This kind of emotional involvement demonstrates the strength of the script and the striking presence of characters like Toothless and Hiccup. The film works like a sunset that, even after being seen 1,000 times, remains wonderful. And more than that, it's a story with many layers. It can be read as a coming-of-age journey, a search for identity, or even a critique of imposed standards of masculinity. The most impressive thing is how the remake creates room for new interpretations. There are powerful metaphors there, like the dark village turning into a place filled with light, or the outcasts becoming part of the whole. It's a story that speaks about forgiveness, physical disability, empathy, and acceptance. And all of this is presented naturally without needing to force any depth. The choice to film on real locations, such as in Iceland, raises the production to another level. Unlike other remakes that seem to be made in makeshift studios, this one delivers a grand visual experience. IMAX really helps with that. It's as if the original film was a storyboard for an even more vibrant work. What's most magical is that it doesn't feel fake or artificial. It feels real, like a sculpture coming to life. The production used real locations, such as the landscapes of Iceland, to bring more authenticity to the world of the story. This attention to aesthetics helps set the production apart from other remakes that rely too heavily on artificial sets or generic digital effects. And here's an interesting fact: when the animation was made, the inspiration was actually Iceland, where the film was shot. So, beyond nostalgia, this faithfulness to the locations, the setting, and the filming of the movie makes perfect sense. The use of IMAX technology was essential to enhance the cinematic experience, highlighting the grandeur of the outdoor scenes and the detailed interactions between the characters. This technical choice helps distance the film's aesthetic from a television-like language and brings it closer to a true cinematic experience, which is exactly what we need, right? So it really makes a difference to go to the theater instead of waiting to watch it at home. Cinema is used here the way it should be. Nothing about it feels like just another streaming product. Everything was designed for the big screen. The result is a robust film that values its own existence. Even though it's a story we already know, it takes on a new dimension. At this point in the video, I want to share something important for anyone who wants to build sources of income using artificial intelligence. For example, how to build a channel like this one. In the mentorship program, Monetization, Master of Artificial Intelligence, I teach exactly how to turn this kind of strategic vision, whether about storytelling, business, or creativity, into real sources of income. I show how to use artificial intelligence to create new opportunities and scale physical or digital businesses. And if you don't have a business yet, you can start from scratch. If this approach makes sense to you, I'll leave the link in the video description and pinned in the first comment. I'll be very happy to help you. Going back to the movie about Toothless, who is the most famous dragon in the franchise, there's an interesting detail. He remains animated even in the live action. This choice preserves the charm and exaggeration of the animation without compromising realism. Unlike what happened with The Lion King, for example, which tried to be so realistic that it lost its magic, at least in my opinion. Here the balance works. Even with a more realistic look, the character Toothless remains in an animated form which preserves the creature's charm and allows his exaggerated expressions to keep working within a new aesthetic approach. This balance between the real and the playful is one of the keys to the film's success. Of course, not everything is perfect. Geralt Butler, at times, seems to try too hard to imitate the character from the animation. This creates a certain awkwardness, as if he's forcing himself to fit into a role that was created with different boundaries. The editing also suffers a bit, with sections that could have been better crafted to give the film's pacing more fluidity. The film's editing stumbles slightly by sticking too closely to the animation's rhythm, with abrupt transitions and scenes that could have used a bit more breathing room. This affects the narrative flow somewhat, although it doesn't undermine the overall engagement with the story. Still speaking of Geralt Butler, at certain moments in his performance, it seems the actor tries to mimic the animated mannerisms of the character from the previous version. This attempt to replicate the animated performance in a physical body creates a certain awkwardness in specific scenes, especially the more emotional ones. Even with these missteps, none of this undermines the whole. The story is so strong that it stands on its own. The remake delivers more than most others. It shows that when done with respect and ambition, a remake can indeed have value. And How to Train Your Dragon proves exactly that. Is it necessary? I don't think so, but since they made it, they did it with heart. Finally, even though it was created within an obvious commercial context, in other words, to make more money, the remake conveys sincerity and delivers more than just a simple repetition of the original context. There is soul in the project, and that's what ends up making it stand out among so many other generic releases. Disney, we're talking about you. There is life behind the cameras in this project, and that life is what makes the difference. Rewatching this story was already good, but now with this new look, it's even better. And if they lose their fear, are brave, and create an original story, then it will be even better. And do you think this remake really surpassed the original animation? Or do you still prefer the magic of the first film? This video doesn't end here. It continues with us chatting in the comments. If you found this video interesting, like, share, and subscribe to the channel.